TRG, yeah. Little Rock to the Big Apple. Real talk, books, open them. Numbers don't lie. I see Charles with the magnifying glass, calculating cash, looking at the foundation. Wait, check the filing, no compliance, told to silence. He finds the gaps in the ledger, measure the pressure. The paper trail leads to the south. Watch your mouth, on it, keep it honest. He's crunching the data, seeing you later, or tell on the case, right in your face. Where did the billions go? Does anybody know? Where did the billions go? Does anybody know? Facts, hard facts, heavy lifting, moving through the documents, sifting. He found the fraud in the charity, lack of clarity. Tax fall is looking real thin. Where you been? Arkansas, Washington. All the same, playing the game, broken, systems broken, words unspoken. Hotel brings the heat, no retreat, heavy, it's getting heavy. He's crunching the data, seeing you later, or tell on the case, right in your face. Where did the billions go? Does anybody know? Where did the billions go? Does anybody know?
Add it up, subtract it, divide the lies, subtract the prize, look at the math, feel the wrath, the truth is coming, no more running.
He's crunching the data, seeing you later, or tell on the case, right in your face. Where did the billions go? Does anybody know? Where did the billions go? Does anybody know? Keep digging Charles, the spreadsheets tell a story. No glory, just the numbers, B.I.G. 96 style, yeah, out. Where did the billions go? Does anybody know? Where did the billions go? The billions go, the billions go. Does anybody know?
Cut! That was great.
That was
Can we
amazing.
reset the building and try one without the helmet?
And there you go, Charles. The signal has dropped.
Amazing.
Where did the billions go? Nobody know.
The animation was superb there.
Thank you. Yeah, I broke
Absolutely
some new
amazing.
ground with the notorious AIG right there. Get rich or die or lie trying. And you've actually accurately pointed out that might be a 50 Cent album, but it doesn't matter. The whole thing is parody, of course. And obviously we've got to talk about the very important developments in Iran, but I've been developing this all week in anticipation of Bill Clinton's absurd testimony where he now is a habitual under oath liar. How are you tonight, Charles?
I'm great, thanks, Rask. I'm still smiling.
I didn't know you could break dance and rap like that. That was great.
Well, now everybody knows. So they're going to ask me to do it again. I'm a one-trick pony.
Pretty good stuff. I couldn't get you to do the windmill, though. I was disappointed with that. The head spin was good.
Yeah, I do that every day out here in Penang. No, that was really fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's hope the public enjoys it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the spectacle of what Bill and Hillary tried to pull off last week, of course, is overshadowed by what's going on in Iran, in and around Iran. But soup to nuts, they thought they had the legacy media wired, and they tried their same old predictable bullshit, having Hillary show up with Cheryl Mills, who played the important role in the impeachment trial and gave the impassioned speech that some say swayed a bunch of minds in the Senate trial, saying that she wouldn't have been a lawyer representing the president if it were not for Bill Clinton's heroic work on civil rights, which is so much vomit. But they tried that tactic with Hillary. She, of course, had the ability to immediately blast email her Onward Together followers and the shills in the mainstream media who hold out the faint hope that she someday might be president in 2029, which is ridiculous. She'd be lucky to be walking the planet in 2029 as a free person. But so they tried this idea that they could rush out to the public before the transcripts, before the videos are seen, and say that, Hillary demolished Comer and the Republicans and made fools out of them and yada, yada, yada is her side of it. What's that woman's name? Anna Paulina Luna or something like that? Luna, yeah. She said quite the contrary, that I believe it was Nancy Mace started asking tough questions of Hillary, and Hillary just had a meltdown, yelling and screaming until she realized supposedly she was on camera and just changed her whole demeanor abruptly. So we haven't seen that yet, and we want to see the transcript, but multiple people have concurred with that characterization of what Nancy Mace accomplished. And then we turn to Bill. And the really challenging thing for Bill is he doesn't know how to tell the truth. He just knows that by the force of his personality, he can appear reasonable and measured when he wants to be. But the second you go to a place where you're asking him tough questions, I think you've seen this firsthand, Jason, when you saw him in some setting, a switch goes off and his face darkens and he gets extremely combative. Of course, he knows he has Secret Service protection, and if you do anything menacing, you're going to be in serious trouble, menacing back to him. So the question of what Bill Clinton actually did with the foundation is a much bigger question than that, because the real question is, what were Bill and Terry McAuliffe doing from 1998 forward, where McAuliffe was simultaneously raising mega millions for the Democratic Party and various causes around the Democratic Party, for Hillary's Senate campaign, when he gave the Clintons a loan that they couldn't otherwise get to buy the Chappaqua Mansion, without which she couldn't get her Senate seat. What was he doing with that money when he was also raising money, in theory, for a presidential foundation? And where's all the paperwork and all that? How did they keep this all separate and straight? Because in addition to doing what I just mentioned, he was also raising money to defray the mega $1 million legal fees that Bill and Hillary had run up through their defenses in various scandals. How do you keep all that separate and apart? And how do you respect the lines, which are supposed to be bright, that say charity fundraising is for charity only? You can't go to somebody and say, as McAuliffe has admitted in his stupid book, that he, in D.C., around the time of Hillary's birthday, there was some rich couple in Washington, D.C., in the White House, and McAuliffe simultaneously asked for a bunch of money for these related causes in D.C. And I don't think the Clinton Foundation has ever properly registered in Washington, D.C. when Bill was in the White House. If they did, by some small chance, I'm certain they didn't separately register Terry McAuliffe as a fundraiser, which you would have to do for the amounts involved. And so the thing is a singular mess, or I should say complex set of stinky, oozy messes, starting back to October 23, 1997, while Clinton was in the White House and while he believed that Al Gore would succeed him. He could make sure that the IRS and the DOJ and others didn't look too carefully into all this. But it was after he left that it really becomes curious. So I just checked this. I've got a piece, I hope, coming out in the American Thinker shortly that'll go into this in some depth. But on January 20th, 2001, when George W. Bush at noon became president of the United States, succeeding Bill Clinton, actually the executive branch had a responsibility that day to release any sensitive records. There are certain records that they classify as sensitive that may have been withheld into the public domain, so that people who wanted to access those records could do so using making Freedom of Information Act requests. And George W. Bush didn't do that on January 20th. What did happen shortly after January 20th is news of the stupid pardons, and everybody focuses on Mark Rich and Pincus Green. They were bad eggs, but Susan Rosenberg was far worse. And she, thankfully, Donald Trump, I believe, has announced that they're going to go or direct the Justice Department to look into Act Blue. But Susan Rosenberg is a vile individual who, I believe, blew up federal property, was convicted of a felony, was serving time in prison, and Bill added her to the list of people he pardoned at the last minute on the 20th. So with all this furor over that, people focused on Marc Rich and Pincus Green, and they didn't appropriately focus on what the hell was this Clinton Foundation doing from October 23, 1997 forward. Where are the reports for that entity? How come it didn't file an information return in 97? Was there cross fundraising or cross pollination between the efforts or among the efforts to raise money for the library, for the legal fees, and for campaigns? Did people focus on that enough in the FBI from 2001 to 2005 when they were, in theory, investigating? Where are the audits? Where are the state regulatory forums? Where are the board minutes? How do we know that this organization was actually organized by trustees? It was incorporated by lawyers who were owed millions of dollars and had a vested interest in attracting a money source to pay off their legal bills. But there's no sign that actual trustees amended the Articles of Incorporation to formally organize the thing. And there's no tax return at all was filed pertaining to 1997. Then you move into 91. In January 91, Bill's in Chappaqua, Hillary's in Chappaqua and in the U.S. Senate. Where's the registration to solicit funds naming Bill Clinton as a fundraiser? In 2001, he went around the world doing so. He's not listed as an officer, a trustee, a director, or a key employee in Forms 990, which are the annual forms that have to be filled and filed. He's not listed there. And yet he's in the business, after he leaves the White House, of issuing these gauzy press releases and writing op-eds and claiming around the world that he's fighting AIDS using his foundation. Well, there's no report that says he has any legal connection to the foundation. You can't just set up a foundation to do one thing. And even if the cause is noble, to fight aliens, we're about to eat us all, you can't just willy-nilly take a foundation that's supposed to house a library and then start spending money or getting money to fly around the world to go to conferences saying you're fighting AIDS when you have no qualifications to do that, no organization to do that, and no mandate to do that. Yet that's exactly what he did. And of all people to get involved with this, he selects Ira Magaziner, his buddy from Oxford, Rhodes Scholar days, who, by the time the two of them, in theory, pretend that they're fighting AIDS, Magaziner has been disciplined appropriately, or perhaps not harshly enough, for his role with that healthcare task force, where they lied and said government employees were in secret devising the new health program, when in fact they were private contractors and people with conflicts of interest were all over that thankfully aborted plan that Hillary tried to ram down our throats. So with regard to Bill's testimony, I'm certain that he attempted, and we haven't seen it yet, I'm certain that he attempted to deflect any pointed questions on Epstein by saying, listen, I've devoted my career to public service, and after I got out of politics, to fighting for just causes around the world selflessly. I've raised billions of dollars to help people afflicted with AIDS and other serious diseases around the world. Look at me, aren't I great? And on that, his ex description, it says he's the founder of the Clinton Foundation. There is absolutely no evidence of that. I mean, in politics, you say what you want, but in the charity world, that's not the way it works. If you're going to claim that you founded an organization, show me the Articles of Incorporation, show me the bylaws, and show me the board minutes that say that you're actually connected to your foundation. There's no evidence of that until 2013 at the parent company level with regard to Bill Clinton. It's only after 2013, sometime in 2014, as a guess, that Bill Clinton formally becomes, in theory, a director of Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation. And,
Charles,
I know.
Did you watch that video that he put on X of what he's saying right here? Because I think he's got some conflicts just even in what he's saying in this video. He says that he stopped his interaction with Jeffrey Epstein in 2008. And I think there's evidence that that's not true. And Hillary said she doesn't even know who he is. But separately, there's that letter from Gerald Lefcourt where they say that Jeffrey Epstein founded the Clinton Global Initiative. So who is lying there? Either, I mean,
all of
they'll
them.
say, right.
Yeah, I mean, let's as you like to say, let's break it down a little bit. Again, if you're just Jeffrey Epstein and you say, I'm a financier, I'm a billionaire, you can get away with saying that kind of stuff if you have access to some money. And if people help you, maybe in the government help you get a lease on a fancy apartment or a townhouse that you shouldn't otherwise get, which it is alleged happened in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, if they insert you into other swindles so you can rat out the chief swindler and make a government's case, you can build this argument that the guy was a financier. But it's a serious offense, and it actually did happen with great notoriety in New York City. You probably remember there was a time in New York City, I think in the 90s, when there were these folding tables all over the place, particularly in the Village and elsewhere, with these gigantic glass jars, vats really, that you were encouraged to help the homeless. And it turned out that the guy taking the change home was maybe not homeless, or maybe he was getting pretty rich because he was getting a ton of cash, and there was no such homeless charity. That, in essence, is what Bill has done ever since January 2001. He's gone around the world claiming that there is an organization that he controls that is going to do things that sound like they maybe should be done, to the audience he likes to address. Fighting AIDS, he says initially. Nobody has figured out how to cure AIDS. Nobody. Real scientists and real medical doctors have not figured. All this guy did is get together with another, I would argue, swindler, Ira Magaziner, and tout another stupid-ass scheme, which is a procurement consortium. I mean, that sounds like, wow, that must be important. A procurement consortium is if the drug vendors or the people you're buying stuff from are in business to make money, a procurement consortium is nothing more than a business development exercise. It is certainly not a charity, and there's an on-point case involving, I think, the Federated Pharmacy System or something like that, which goes into this in great depth. So the initial effort to convince poor governments that didn't have the health infrastructure to pretend they were fighting AIDS by buying generic drugs, much of them made by a company that should be bankrupt by now, Ranbaxy. That is certainly not a charitable activity, and it never was authorized legitimately by the IRS to be a program of the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. It just wasn't. And as for the Clinton Global Initiative, in New York City, in New York State, as the Trump family found out twice, the rules governing soliciting for charities and reporting about their activities are incredibly strict in New York. I guess only for Republicans. But in the case of the Clinton Foundation, it initially registered in 1998 as it was fundraising, simultaneously for Hillary's, not the Clinton Foundation wasn't fundraising for a Senate campaign, but people close to the Clinton Foundation were also fundraising for the Hillary Clinton Senate primary and then campaign. So there is a registration for 98, but the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation never bothered to register with the Secretary of State. It never, which you have to do, or file a report with them. It never bothered to register its doing business as names. These included Clinton Global Initiative, Clinton Health Access Initiative, Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative, Clinton Climate Initiative. No registration, no reporting. Reports that eventually go in are false and material and misleading. New York says you got to have a real audit, and people who don't understand audits need to understand there are varying levels of an audit. You can get a review, which is not an audit, and it does not comply with New York law. You can get a kind of a surface level audit that may be just of the parent company only, but what New York says, no. You got to get an audit by a real accounting firm of the entire consolidated enterprise, whatever that may have been, beginning, I would argue, certainly by 1998. There are no such audits. And the Clinton Foundation website is bold enough to have a section that says audits and Forms 990, implying that, and it has tabs for 1998 through 2024, implying that you have an audit for 1998. There's no audit for 98, 99, 2000, 2001 through 2004. And the one that comes out in 2005 attempts to mask, but I've uncovered, $64.5 million in theft that occurred sometime after December 31st, 2004. So, for Bill to get up there and think that he's just going to sleaze bucket his way through softball questions and then have a period of time where he can characterize what happened and lie about it, that he's going to get away with all this, when, as you mentioned, Left Court has a letter in with Dershowitz, I think, praising Jeffrey Epstein and suggesting he should get a lighter sentence whenever that letter was written, because Epstein played a key role in the Clinton Global Initiative. Now, the Clinton Global Initiative is another business development exercise for the Clintons. When you hold a conference in New York City closed to the public, where supposedly the entry price is $20,000, but it's not open to the public. It's only open to the people the Clintons want to let in. And then you spend 2, 3, 4 days having a good old time. And unfortunately for the Clintons, Tom Golisano, who is one of the business people, a billionaire, who set up Paychex, the company Paychex, which I know you have views about. Tom Golisano has a book. I think it's titled something like "The Italian Kid Did It," and he explains his perspective on funding it. And his view was it sounded like a good cause, and it was a way for him to meet celebrities. And he brags about it. Introducing his wife to the celebrities, and he explains that he and the Clintons had a falling out. I hope they had a falling out because Golisano is also a big philanthropist. I hope he eventually checked into the paperwork and discovered, now, wait a minute. The Clinton Foundation is not registered in New York. Clinton Global Initiative is not a charity. There's no separate. How do I write a check to something that doesn't have a bank account? If I'm writing it to the Clinton Foundation, is that thing legitimate? How come it's not registered in New York? So the biggest surprise to me through all this idiocy that we've been on here for, in my case, going on 12 years on the Clinton Foundation, is why the FBI didn't do the obvious thing. Why, with the Clinton Global Initiative in particular, why didn't it say, all right, give me a list of every commitment to action and let's go through each one of them, see what happened? Why didn't they do that? Why, for 4 years in the first investigation, didn't they say, no, wait a minute, there is no Clinton Foundation registered in New York. There are no audits. After January 2004, apparently there was no secretary, which you need 3 officers in an Arkansas corporation, a president, a secretary, and a treasurer. And the secretary, from the standpoint of doing an audit, is the most important one. That's the only person who can certify inside the nonprofit organization that any type of record is true and accurate. There was no such person. There had been a person. David Pryor was the secretary for 2003. He gets named the first dean of the Clinton School of Public Services. It says in 2004, I don't want to be secretary. So they come up with a genius plan of submitting a 990 to the IRS that says there isn't a secretary. That's their first step in how to shoot themselves in the head. They then shoot themselves.
I got to pause you for a second. I know you're on a roll right here, but we're going to have to carry on most of this in the First Amendment forum because we're just about out of time. Sal Greco is with us in the comments, reminding everybody that when Hillary Clinton, you were the first person to tell me about this actually, when Hillary Clinton first announced her run for Senate, it was done at a laundromat owned by basically known mob associate Jimmy Rodriguez. So that's a pretty weird thing. But we're going to continue the conversation right now. People can join us on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Also, people who follow me on X at JG_CSTT and follow there are going to be able to see it. Thanks to everybody who does sponsor the show. Charles, these AI animations aren't going to make themselves. But we'll be back in 5 minutes. Everybody, stay with us. We got a lot more to discuss about